All right, JJ, you want to start us off?
Jeff, after watching the film, what were some of the biggest takeaways from your week 3 win this week?
One of the most dominating defensive performances I've ever been a part of as a head coach or an assistant. Our kids just play with unbelievable tenacity, and we played a lot of kids, and they're really good athletes, and they're fresh, and they know their scheme, and they were just physically dominant. Offensively, we just had a lot of mental mistakes, spittered and sputtered a little bit. I know we had 500 yards and 90 plays, and we were really good on third down. We did some really good things. Just some penalties showed up that haven't shown up, and turnovers showed up that hadn't shown up. I thought one of the plays of the game that hasn't been talked about very much is, once Frank threw the interception, he turned the kid back in, and Sincere made a great tackle, probably saved us 7 points. Special teams wise, kind of like we were on offense. We did a lot of good things, but we had some critical mistakes, kicked the ball out of bounds again. Got whipped up front, kicked the ball in the back of our head on one of our own players. They actually didn't even block it. Our own offensive lineman hit him in his helmet. So we got some stuff to fix, obviously, if we're going to have any chance at all to play a very, very good Memphis team who's won 17 games in a row at home.
Jeff, talking about the defense, why were they so dominant? Were there a new scheme or new installed this past?
We've got really good players, JJ, and we got a lot of them. We had all those kids returning. We felt good about our starters to begin with, but we went out and recruited some very, very good 2s and 3s. We're just really deep, and we play them all. I don't know the exact number, but I haven't counted it yet, but I bet we played 75 kids Saturday. And I'll get my coaches to give me an exact number, but I know we played 66 against Illinois and 85 or 86 against Lamar, and I bet we were high in the 70s. So really good athletes that are very fresh, that believe in our culture. They're selfless. They give perfect effort. They play with passion. They're mentally and physically tough. And, I know y'all get tired of hearing about it, but that's what our kids believe in.
Okay, Greg.
Jeff, you mentioned the dominance up front, and I was thinking back to one of your comments after the game. You said that we never really took their will from them, was your quote. What does that really mean? And, what does it look like when you guys achieve that?
Well, defensively, I think we did. I just feel that very strongly that we did. But offensively, we couldn't make them go away. Those guys are tough. They're very well coached. And we just never could puncture them. We were banging at them, but we just never could puncture them. So I felt like our defense imposed their will. We played good up front. Their safeties had 27 tackles in the game. They were both very good players. They've been playing a long time. Our play action game didn't get to them. We just couldn't. Two very good defenses playing.
Was there anything in particular that you thought led into some of the mistakes on offense, and how do you expect the group to respond to that coming back this week?
We practiced very well Tuesday and Wednesday. We might have had too much offense in. We probably overthought it because that coordinator's so good, and probably had a little paralysis by analysis. And got to turn our kids loose a little bit more, let them be a little more free, cut down the number of plays we had, and eliminate mistakes. Those players are a reflection of me. So when they're making mistakes, that means the head coach didn't get them coached up good enough. And as special teams wise as well, we got to get better there. We're doing too much, and a lot of good stuff. I don't want to sound like negative Nancy. There's a lot of good stuff on offense and special teams, but we can be cleaner.
That's interesting. On offense, like what percentage of your playbook do you typically bring into any given game, and how does that all get worked out?
I don't know the exact percentage, Greg, but it's always overage is a term you use. That's the offense that you prepared and you didn't even use. So you got to be careful. You got to have enough offense to keep those guys off balance. They coach too. They got to feed their families. They got to pay their light bills. So they're working hard as well. So it's a balance always, Greg.
It feels like every week there's something that shows up watching the game back that I hadn't seen in a previous game. Is there always something that you're pulling out and kind of adding just that maybe you haven't put on film before to keep them off balance?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, those guys coach hard. And you're always dressing it up, trying to do the same stuff that looks different. But then you've always got to have a few wrinkles in each week as well.
Back to you, JJ.
Jeff, what did it mean to be able to get the run game going? It seemed like early on it was a little bit difficult to get it going, but Sincere ended up with his 100 yards.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he's getting, his footing wasn't very good. If you watch how many times we slipped, running backs, receivers, we were on the ground quite a bit. And we got that fixed at halftime, and he wasn't very confident. He just couldn't get his footing down. So second half, he ran a lot better. His cuts were a lot more crisp and sharp. And I thought we had some footing issues.
What about the play of the offensive line? Again, it's a shuffle for you guys, but it's gotta feel good to be able to still produce those rushing yards.
Yeah, it's just frustrating. Guys getting moved around like crazy, but it's going to pay off in the end. Last year we finally got that 5 out there. I think the last 5 or 6 games, and we got to be pretty good. So it'll pay off at some point, but we have yet to have the same 5. And I was very proud of Meach for going out there, and he had to go against. Not only did we not have Spencer, but their best defensive lineman was 91. He's the captain of the team. He's strong. He's physical. He's been playing a long time. So Meach, my little youngster, had to go out there and battle a grown-up veteran and did a really good job for us. But I was very proud of our kids for getting that running game going in the second half. And, we got sloppy after the long run of Frank. We didn't get lined up correctly, lost 4 yards, ran the ball into a bad look, third down, incomplete pass, and just some sloppy stuff, JJ, that disappointed us.
Greg?
Jeff, you mentioned Demetrius Allen getting the start at left tackle, and we spent last week talking a lot about him working at center. Is it sort of rare for a player to have that versatility, or what makes him able to slide into these different roles?
You look to try to find as many of those players as possible. It's hard to get 10 offensive linemen, ready to play. It's easier to get 8. And Meach has to do a lot of cross training. He played center in that game as well when Maka went down. So he went from left tackle back to center. A very special young man. He's going to have a bright future here. He's smart. He's athletic. He's young, but he's going to grow up for us right in front of our own eyes.
With Spencer and some of the other guys we saw go down, what's sort of the state of the team's overall health this week? Anybody who's at risk of missing Saturday?
I hope not. You know how we practice. I mean, we'll be getting after it Tuesday and Wednesday as well. So you don't play as physically tough as we do unless you practice physical. And we practice physical. So there's always the risk of that during the week. It's bit us in the tail a few times already. But you can't have it both ways. I mean, I can get all of them out there for y'all. We won't lose anybody, but we won't be very tough. We won't be in shape. So it's a fine line as a head coach as well. I've got to be smart. I can't be not taking care of my players, but at the same time, we got to get them ready.
One of the things you said after the game was that with this team, when people tell them they can't do something, they do the opposite and they try to prove them wrong. Where does that mentality come from, and what examples of that have you seen so far in the last couple of years?
Well, just, last year, picked last, basically in the country, last in the conference, 0 kids on the preseason team. Nobody picked us up at Illinois. I mean, you just tell these guys something and they're going to show you. And we'll be an underdog this week. I understand that. Memphis is very, very good. It's probably the first team that we've played that I think has more team speed than we do. Now, my players don't like me to hear me say that. That bothers them. It really gets them ticked off at me. But I feel like they're that fast. And they've won 17 games at home in a row, just beat an SEC team. So we know no one's going to pick us on the road. ESPN, nationally televised, 2-3-0 teams. That sounds like fun to me.
Do you sort of steer into the underdog thing this week just because your guys have that mentality and they tend to respond that way?
You guys will do that for me. I mean, I don't have to worry about it. That's why y'all are the best, because y'all are gonna remind us, which is awesome for me because I don't have to do it. We're just going to do what we always do and trust the triangle. The triangle travels. We want to be the most physical defense on the team. on the field. We want to be able to be physical on offense and special teams. And I know every team says it, but we really believe in that.
Well, the reason I asked is because I think a lot of people are expecting this to be quite the showdown and kind of a closer game than maybe before the year a lot of people would have thought. So I wasn't sure if you had to sort of, adjust for that and make sure the guys still have that kind of chip on their shoulder entering a tough environment like this.
We started working on last night at 6. We celebrated for 24 hours and gave out game awards. And then I met with my leadership council to move on to the next week. So we were studying Memphis last night. Obviously, our analysts and our GAs have been on them for a week. So they presented their schemes and their players to us last night. A lot of video watching, trying to get ready for base down for tomorrow right now.
What are the big things that jump out about Memphis? Anything in particular that you have to lock in on?
Their defense is similar to ours. They play an odd 9 starters returning. It's a very veteran group, very athletic. Offensively, similar to ours. They up tempo, play really fast. I think I had the leading receiver in the history of the school, number 5, who's from Texas, which that bothers you, right? Quarterback, a good young player. Dad's a good friend of mine. Really, really happy for him. Playing really, really well. And they're famous for returning kicks for touchdowns and punts for touchdowns. They're so fast back there. A complete team with a lot of tradition. There's about 5 of those group of 5 schools that when I got hired that we look at and want to be like one day. And Memphis is one of those 5. They've got great facilities, great fan base, tremendous booster involvement, a lot of winning, a lot of great athletes. And that's what we want to be like one day.
JJ?
Jeff, do you have any idea what to expect from the environment at Memphis on Saturday?
I've been there before when I was at SMU. It's very humid, a cool bowl stadium. Wind can swirl in there a little bit. Crowd will be rowdy, and a bunch of really fast guys over there we're trying to tackle, a bunch of really fast guys chasing us, JJ.
I wanted to ask you how you thought Frank Harris played this past week. He had a few kind of uncharacteristic mistakes we hadn't seen this year. Is that something you think he's just going to bounce back from?
I do. He bounced back in the game. Right after the mistakes, he came back and made really impressive throws and runs. And he'll be the first one to tell you he's disappointed. But I'm an imperfect coach, coaching imperfect players. There's going to be imperfection. So his effort was great. His attitude was great, and he'll bounce back.
Greg?
Jeff, what did it mean for you to see Trumaine Bell come away with 2 sacks and a forced fumble there against Middle Tennessee, and what does he bring to the table for you guys?
We really celebrated him yesterday, Greg. It's a great question. He's the epitome of our culture. I mean, the kid never complains. He never says a word. He just practices his tail off every day. And every time we put him in the game, he makes a play. So he's an awesome teammate. I think you could tell just by the Twitter responses of his teammates how much his teammates really respect him. And he was one of our Triangle Toughness Award winners yesterday, and I'm thrilled for T-Bell.
It was interesting to look back and remember he was originally recruited here as a linebacker and then transitioned to defensive line. And a lot of that was before you got here. But what was it like trying to find a spot for him in this odd man front? How well did he fit into that right away?
Well, he's a little undersized. He's kind of a tweener, but he's got high IQ, high character, and never sleep on guys that can think and they've got heart. Somehow those guys always overachieve and find a way to win.
I know last year it was kind of a sacks per snaps where he was pretty high on the team, if not the highest. What made him an effective pass rusher, and did you sort of slot him into more pass rushing downs just because of that success that he had?
Yeah, he was actually one of the highest ones in the country last year. And Coach Wright has done a great job working with him just on his technique. And he works really hard on our one-on-one O-line, D-line, pass protection competitions. And he's just good at it. He has a knack for it, and really good football player.
Anything else for Coach Traylor this morning?
Yeah, Coach, I wanted to ask you about Jalen Haynes as well. Just generally his season so far and kind of the attributes that he brings to the table. What jumps out about him?
those kids really respect him. Obviously, he got voted into number one again. He's just an old veteran, just such a good boy. I mean, I know that sounds corny, but man, he's just country, and he reminds me a lot of myself. You know, not only does he talk slow, he probably hears slow too. I mean, I just love country. He's got more nicknames than country, bull, pork chop. I mean, he's just very liked on our team. He's very strong. He holds down that middle. He draws a lot of double teams. Him and Brandon Brown hold down that nose guard, and McDougal. Those guys get doubled almost every snap. So their stats aren't as great as everybody else on the team. But everybody will tell you the reason everybody else's stats are so good, because those centers and those guards, they're spending 2-on-1. So great human, great player. I'm glad he stayed healthy. You know, he's got to play in 3 straight games, and that was huge. And can't say enough about Bull, Country, Pork Chop, Jalen Haynes, number one.
He's not a guy that we talk to very regularly or that you see out there on Twitter a lot and things like that. Is he kind of like a quiet, reserved guy in personal settings, or how do you describe what he's like in practice and in the locker room?
He's an old soul. I mean, you know, a leadership council, he comes over to my house and those guys play dominoes and play cards. And you just see guys gathering around him. Doesn't talk a lot. When he speaks, everybody listens. He's just an absolute joy to coach, and he's a blessing.
JJ?
Jeff, you mentioned those guys kind of doing the work that nobody sees. Were they responsible for most of the pressure you were able to put on the quarterback this past week? Lots of sacks, lots of tackles for losses.
You know, Clarence Hicks had a great day sacking the quarterback as well. Chuck, there were a lot of them. I thought Corey's play was huge, but I thought Trevor Harmonson's play on 4th down and 1 early in the game, and just the dominance of it and how he hit him in the backfield and was so dominant in his tackle. I thought Tariq came out the very first play of the game and sent a huge message about how physical we are. I thought Rashad Wisdom's play on the post route down the field was a big-time play. There's a lot of those plays in the game that I thought those kids just kept showing up on, and I was happy for Lorenzo. Another super senior scored. You know, those kids want to chase the NFL, right? And that's a hard choice to come back for a first-year coach. But, man, I'm so happy those guys got voted into single digits. You know, both those guys got voted on the leadership council. Both those guys got voted into single digits, and both of them scored a touchdown in the Alamo Dome. That's pretty special. That doesn't happen very much in high school or college football or pro. It doesn't matter. It's hard to do.
But as far as getting pressure on the quarterback, I think you guys also had 10 QB hurries this past week. This is the most active we've seen the pressure this week. Was there something different, or did just things start to steamroll in this game and you guys kind of got hot?
Yeah, we got ahead of them. So when we got ahead of the chains a lot, when you only allow 8 yards rushing, you know, they got to throw it so you can pin your ears back a little more. That's why we try to be so balanced on offense. Stott wants to be that way too. It's just we got them out of whack by getting ahead of them and winning on the chains on 1st down.
Greg?
Jeff, I heard you say on the radio just before this that with the leadership council, I guess, made the decision to wear suits last week, and then they wanted to go more casual this week. I just thought it was interesting, sort of what goes into that, and why did you want to leave that in their hands?
Well, I trust them. You know, we talk about trust all the time. It's truth over time, and I had never thought of the idea. It was Rashad's idea. Now I know why. I mean, he had that outfit probably bought a year ago, ready for this day. I mean, he was, and Frank coached me up on it. He's like, Coach, if Rashad wants to do this, he must have something he's really going to bust out. And he did. He won the best dressed award for sure. You know, it can be a distraction. I even text my kids. I'm like, this is why these older coaches don't like this kind of stuff. We talked about what does casual dress mean. I can't tell you how many times I Googled what casual dress is. Versus business casual, and our jerseys going to be allowed, and what colors, and blah. Man, it was a beat down. But those kids, they like to do stuff. So against my own nature and judgment, I listened to them, and it ended up being a lot of fun. Our kids had a blast. They looked really sharp getting off the bus, and it's amazing how many of our recruits loved it and hit me up on how much they loved it. So you learn something every day, Greg. So that kudos to the kids. And I'm just glad none of them showed up in flip-flops and some shorts like I wore back in the 80s.
Is it important to empower your players with whether it's decisions like that or even carrying over to in-game situations or things that they see that they want to put into action?
They know I listen. They know where the buck stops, and they're great. They don't push me. They know when I speak, I've had enough, and they're fantastic. But yes, I do think it's a new generation. It's a new era of coaching, and you either adapt or you're out of this business. And with name, image, and likeness and transfer portal, kids have a lot of say right now. So, you know, it works good for me because I truly love the kids, and it's never been a problem with me. I've always kind of been this way as long as I've been coaching. It's a player's game. Coaches get way too much blame and way too much credit. It's about the kids. And somehow, and you know what happened along the way, the almighty dollar got involved. And it's supposed to be about the kids, and it's supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be a great experience for these kids. And I'm going to do my best to help them that experience.
Does that carry over into like game situations? I mean, we saw, I don't know if you saw on Sunday Night Football last night, Harbaugh asked Lamar Jackson, you want to go for this here? Like, do you ever put that kind of thing in the players' hands or get their opinion within a game of what play to run here, how to handle a scenario?
Yeah, they just know they better be truthful. Like when they come to the sideline and tell me something, like I'll give you an example on that holding penalty on Zakari. I went up to him and I'm like, man, it was your head placement. And he's like, Coach, the kid did this, and to me, because I don't want to comment because the officials get mad at me. But what he told me was the exact truth. If you go back and watch that play, what he said to me, what he communicated to me was exactly the truth. And that's what I really want to communicate to my players. I don't want to hear you're open if you're not open. I don't want to hear you can beat this kid on a pass rush if you really can't beat him. I don't want to hear we can run the ball, coach. We're puncturing these kids right now if we're really not. So they know if they tell me the truth and I come back and watch the video that they're speaking honestly to me, I'm going to listen to them. And that's the relationship we try to have with all of our players.
Anything else for Coach? All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. God bless. Thumbs up.